Hello, everybody, and welcome to the London Mountain Podcast. My name's Greg Hackett, and in this series of interviews, I'm going to be talking to filmmakers who enter their films for our festival, and I'm also going to be talking to community hosts, who are the wonderful people who share those films in their communities. If you think you could be either a filmmaker or a community host, then this is the podcast for you. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the London Mountain Podcast. Today we're joined by Mark Vaughan, whose company Lightshed Productions turned out a brilliant film called Access Land, which won our People's Choice Award at our festival last time out. So welcome, Mark. How are you?
Hi, Greg. I'm very honoured to be sat here talking to you, and very thankful as well for all the people voting for me, putting People's Choice Award on Access Land, and the film that I directed, but many other people were instrumental in making what the final film was. So from me and all of them, we are very grateful for being selected and being celebrated.
Well, it was so popular, and I think there's a couple of, obviously it's because it's a good film. That's the main reason. But I think also there's other reasons, which is the whole access land issue is so important right now, isn't it? And people are really interested in exploring that. But also your film was a dramatised production, unlike 99% of our films, which are documentaries. So why don't we start with that? I'm interested to hear, I assume you're trained as a documentary filmmaker, but maybe more broadly. So perhaps you could tell us a bit about that, and then maybe why you chose to go down the drama route with this particular film.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I did train as a documentary filmmaker. I did a master's in Bristol at UWE, and that was a few years ago now. I came from a background of loving going outdoors, going climbing, and loving telling stories about that and sharing that with other people. And so I started using a camera to document those trips, actually, while I was away living in Spain, in a quite isolated place. And so now I think back to it, one of the early, I say, yes, it was basically a short film, very silly, about doing a boulder problem and getting to an orange that was at the top of the boulder problem magically. Of course, it's not that I put it there. And it was the tale of the tasty orange, or something silly and short. And it was a fictional production. I don't know why I was just sort of drawn to telling a fictional story. I guess I could just wanted to add some magic to the reality that we see of climbing. But anyway, one thing led to another, and I got more interested in filmmaking, and then documentary seemed like a more logical thing to go down after seeing some amazing documentaries that I was really inspired by. And COVID lockdowns hit, and I was back in Manchester originally, and then came back to my parents' house, and during that time reflecting on what I wanted to do next. And it seemed like the logical step would be to do a filmmaking course. And at that time, documentary filmmaking had become the thing in my mind that I was excited for, and sort of made more sense to me to be a small crew using a camera to capture real things as they happen and share those stories with the world. And I wanted to get better at that. And I signed up to this documentary course in Bristol and was accepted.
Fantastic. I'm going to go a bit off piste here because you just made me think of something, which is the post office scandal. This is really off piste. The post office scandal. I've seen a number of news stories and documentaries and stuff about that, but it was only when they made a drama of it that it really hit home to the public, didn't it? So I wonder if there's something in that about the fact that your story was, I don't know, political or certainly an emotional thing, that maybe that was a better way for tapping into, to make people understand the feeling and the sentiment around it. Because the scene at the end where Mabley, isn't it, Mabley Jen, looks distraught by the whole thing. I was quite moved by it.
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. The sort of idea for the film came originally from Eben Muse, an amazing climber and thinker who works for the BMC, and he got in touch and said that he wanted to make a film about access in Wales specifically. We very early on decided that a story, a fictional story, to bring people on board with this journey of what it means to enjoy the outdoors, what it means to find that magic that many of us who love going climbing or canoeing or whatever it may be, just sitting in natural places. We wanted to tell a story that showcased that, and then brought that clashing alongside the reality that is in our landscape, that most of it we cannot access, and we are subject to potentially someone coming and saying, get off my land. Obviously in access land it was a dramatization, and I personally have never experienced anything that severe, but I have experienced some aggression, and I know other people have experienced things more severe. And I think the sort of story, if I was to explain it to someone, as I have done many times, it sort of sounds very simple, but I felt like it was something that I could pour so much of my own experience into, of feeling love for the landscape, feeling love for people that have shared that space with me, and imparted their knowledge that allows me to go out and enjoy it, which is a great privilege. And yet it shouldn't be a privilege, it should be something that everyone is able to experience. And getting that experience shut down because you're just not supposed to camp there, that's the reason, it's the rules, it just screams injustice to me. And I wanted to show that journey, and just take people on that journey that shows how ridiculous our current access laws are. And Eben was up for that, I was keen for it, and it just sort of rolled and became what it was.
It's brilliant that the BMC have got behind Right to Row and that idea. Why did they get in touch with you? What's the connection there?
So Eben had seen, he was originally a friend of my brother's, and he'd seen an early piece of work that I'd done. It was just a passion project.
Did it have an orange in it?
It wasn't fruit this time, but it was food. It was, during lockdown, a fictional bread making narrative of the woes and highs and all besides of a bread maker. It was a story that I told visually and had a laugh doing, and Evan thought, great, I think actually this issue of land access needs a story and it needs some humor. And anyway, originally that money that he had was going to be spent on a conference, and I think he was quite excited to spend it on something a lot more creative and a lot more entertaining, I suppose, something that was going to try and captivate people's imaginations.
Yeah. Well, having spent 30 years in the conference business, it made the right choice. Believe me, it's much more interesting to do a film. Let's go back to your training then and the course you did in Bristol, because I think a number of people might be of an age or a type or of an inclination where they might think about embarking on a course like that. How important do you think it was to your career to have done that course?
I would say for me personally, it would have been harder because I suffer with a lack of confidence, I think, in my own output. And so having a structured system in a course where you're getting lots of feedback, you are allowed to fail, and you have pressure put on you to think of a project, take it from start to finish, and reflect on what was good, what was bad, and do that amongst other people that are also doing the same thing. I think it was really useful to me for my sense of confidence and my understanding of the form, I suppose, what technically and creatively has been done before, and how different types of film fit into different categories or styles. That I've seen, obviously, like everyone, lots of films, but starting to understand a bit more of the theory and the history and the technical craft behind filmmaking, yeah, is something that for me, of course, was helpful for. Would I be where I am without it? I wouldn't be certainly exactly where I am. Could I have earned a living through making films? Maybe, Yeah, maybe it would have been harder. Certainly not impossible. I think, yeah, for me it was helpful, but I think for someone else who's got different sensibilities, it might not be so, fundamental to building confidence and having other people that they can practice with and bounce ideas off. I think it depends on your circumstances, and whether or not you can even do a master's degree to begin with is a great privilege, and that's unfortunate because it's really important that more people have access to advanced training where they can hone their skills and become an expert in something that the world needs more storytellers that make the world a better place.
So you're in Bristol, which is a bit of a hotbed for filmmaking. Am I right?
It is. There is a lot of filmmaking that goes on. It's definitely a hotbed for wildlife filmmaking. That's it's got the NHU here. It's got Plimsoll Productions that involve lots of wildlife, and yeah, various big organisations. And it's wicked to be sort of a small part of that ecosystem and be able to benefit from my friend down the road who happens to be working on a project, and I can hit her up and ask her for some input on my story, and she can ask me to help out with something else. Yeah, I mean, that just speaks to the collaboration, which is part of telling good stories, part of making great films, and it's an area that I need to get better at. I'm definitely no expert, and I've got a long way to go to becoming a better collaborator, becoming more confident, reaching out to people to propose new ideas. And it's something I sort of find difficult because I want to be able to pay those people for their time, because that's respectful, that's fair, because they're experts in whatever they do. And that's very difficult from the position I'm in anyway, and the position most filmmakers or indeed funding bodies even are in as well. But it also is, it comes down to my own things that I need to work on. I think there's a fear of rejection there as well, of reaching out to people and them saying, actually, no, like I don't have time for that, whatever. And I know that's fine, but it plays in for sure. And I need to work on that.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned conference a couple of times, and I think that's really what, particularly in seeking funding. And you are obviously a creative person, so why would a creative person be good at fundraising or seeking or selling sponsorship? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. You're absolutely right. Deep down, just love making things. I love making things that are going to last a long time, that are of a good quality, that are good value, that are not wasteful. And that's what I really love to do. And that is what I pour into making, pour into my films. But that doesn't necessarily, as you say, mean that I'm great at reaching out to people and saying, this is what I'm worth. This is how much I want you to pay me. This is how much I want you to pay the music composer I'm working with. And I want to be able to be paid for the time that I'm not working as well, because the time that I'm doing meetings with you, or the time that I'm writing a funding application, all these things that as a freelancer you have to do and you don't get paid for, somehow you have to roll into your day rate. And then when someone asks you your day rate, and you have to say to them a number which to me feels extortionate, and it's nowhere near enough for the time that I've put in, the time that I still need to put in to produce the type of work that I want to, and that I know is needed and is valuable. It's something that is an ongoing struggle, but it's good to talk about it and good to hear you resonate with it.
I think generally the corporate world is not kind to creatives. I think because even unconsciously, I think they know that creatives want to do it. It's what they want to do, and they know that. Then they know that they take the mickey a bit with price, because they know that if you don't do it, they'll go and find somebody else. So it is about just having confidence, I would have thought, in the quality of your work, which you should have. I mean, it must be growing with the films that you've made.
Yeah, you have to just embrace what you can do at the time you can do it, and know that you're putting the best that you can into it, and you're trying to work with what you've got to do the best by yourself, by the person who's paying you, by the other people that you're collaborating with. And remember that whatever you're doing a great job, and you should be proud of yourself for putting yourself out there in the service of creating things that you hope will make a better world.
Let's go back to Bristol, because I'm a little bit obsessed with the place because it is so cool. And if you look at a map of where we had our community events and where our viewers come from online, Bristol features quite heavily. You know, it's in the top 4. Why is that, do you think? What's going on in Bristol that attracts all these adventurous outdoors people?
Well, I think it is very well connected to a lot of beautiful outdoor spaces. You've got South Wales, you've got the Southwest, more imminently, you've got the Wye Valley, just half an hour away, where you can get some amazing climbing and amazing canoeing down a river that you can go down and not see houses for more distance than you can in most of southern England. It's not exactly Canada, but it feels wild compared to Bristol, at least, and you can get there quickly. There's also, there's a long history of, I mean, I'm thinking climbing now, but the church in Bristol was one of the first indoor climbing centres in the whole of the UK back in the 90s. And you've got the Avon Gorge. It's an absolutely amazing place to climb, and I can get there from a 20-minute cycle from my house, and it's there's a sense of feeling close to going outdoors, and that has over time really fostered a culture of people that are proud of that, I suppose, and that are keen to exploit that and go out to the woods and tell people about it, because it's a beautiful place. And I think it's very important to people in Bristol to get out of Bristol, and it's easy to do that. And so it's become part of the culture to be someone that goes out of Bristol, I suppose, someone that goes out to all the great places that are very easily accessible.
I hadn't thought, I mean, I'm obviously aware of the Avon Gorge. That's the first time that's really occurred to me, that you're right. I can't really think of another city that's got such a natural climbing opportunity within it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's completely unique in the UK in that regard. It's an enormous, spectacular gorge with 90-meter routes that you can do that weave their way up a really adventurous feeling cliff that make you feel a million miles away from that screaming road that is, only 30 meters away or whatever beneath you. Or you could go to the other side of the gorge, where myself and a few friends have been rigging high lines across quarries for the last 2 or 3 years, and you can bounce up in the sky next to your friend and then cycle home for dinner after work.
Have you been filming these slacklining carry-ons?
Yeah, definitely. I think, over the years, that's been somewhere I have taken my camera, taken my drone up to fly, and practiced using kit. At the end of the day, for most filmmakers, it's quite a small amount of time that you are paid to go and use your camera to shoot something. And so, it might only be 10 days, 20 days, a year. It depends. But for me anyway, who's a filmmaker that does editing, I do a lot of the pre-production. I say editing, but that post-production process comprises lots of different things, from music production to color grading to organizing all of the footage. It's a huge amount of time that's spent doing that and checking in with the client, making alterations. So as a filmmaker, the actual time spent out there with a camera shooting something is, as I say, tiny. So why would you be good at it if you don't really do it? So I try to go out and practice, and I do that amongst the things that I love to do, and I'm able to take a video camera or a drone up to Lee Woods and take some video, practice using kit, framing and recording audio in places that I want to be anyway, and I'm stoked to capture footage that looks great to me, even if I don't do anything with it. I think I've shared a couple of things online, but it's more just a great place to practice.
Can you give us a recommendation, just out of interest, as a climbing filmmaker? Give us a couple of films that you think anyone watching this should go and check out.
Well, I do have one that springs to mind immediately. That is one called Sawanabori. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, but Sawanabori, I'm sure if you phonetically type something like that, you'll find that on YouTube. And it's a film, I think it was made by the North Face, but it's about a Japanese practice of waterfall climbing. And so very different to rock climbing, ice climbing, any other type of climbing. But I think there's just something about it that gets quite close to what the spirit of climbing for me is, what's so great about it. You know, it's just, yeah, I mean, go and watch it. But I think it's great.
Does being a filmmaker sometimes interfere with your experience of watching a film?
Yeah, it's something I have to fight a bit sometimes to not think about what lens they're probably using or how cool that little edit sequence was, and instead just get immersed in the story. But having said that, if the story is told well enough, nothing can stop you really from being immersed in it. And, you know, I suppose the filmmaking decisions that are invisible are a sign of a great film.
That's so well put. Thank you very much. I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to let you get back to your day job. But listen, that's been really, really interesting. And I think a great perspective from somebody who's been through a training process. So I can't wait to see what happens next, because you've come a long way fast. You know, Lightshed Productions is turning out good stuff. So well done to you.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you for the platform of a film festival. When I was talking about things like how difficult it is to get funding for films, the flip side of that is how difficult it is to get films out there, get films seen. Film festivals are a great way of doing that. And what you're trying to do with having more community events in different parts of the country is great. Getting people together to sit down and watch a film. Yeah, I still struggle sometimes to just set aside that time to be in a cinema space and watch something. So having a good reason because someone or you are putting on that event in your area that gives that 2 hours or whatever to watching films is fantastic. I think that's really important. I want to see more of that.
Thank you for your time, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and best of luck to you and to Lightshed. Thank you.
No, likewise, Greg. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, everybody, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget, if you want to be a community host, it is really, really easy to bring adventure to your hometown, village, wherever it is you hang out, and raise money for your club, your charity, your adventurous cause. All the details are on our website. Check it out, and we'll see you in February. Thank you. Bye.